What if I told you there were places so dark, so horrifying, that even Auschwitz survivors hesitated to speak their names? What if, hidden deep in the forests of Nazi-occupied Poland, there were death camps designed not just to kill, but to erase? No records, no survivors, no memory. These weren't camps of imprisonment. They were factories of oblivion, where arrival meant instant death, and silence was the only thing that ever left. Today we uncover the forgotten extermination camps of the Holocaust, places worse than Auschwitz. Camps so cruel, so methodically constructed for annihilation, they almost disappeared from history. But by the end of this video, you won't be able to forget them. Stay with us because today, we tell the stories the Nazis tried to bury forever. Treblinka didn't start as a death camp. In 1941, Treblinka Mare was opened as a labor camp, a gravel pit turned punishment zone where prisoners, Jews, Poles, dissidents, were worked to death. No food, no medical care. Only beatings, disease, and 14-hour shifts in freezing conditions. Of the 20,000 imprisoned, half never made it out. But this was just the prelude. 1 mile away in early 1942, the real machinery of murder began. Treblinka II, built in secret under Operation Reinhard, the Nazis' cold-blooded plan to exterminate Polish Jews. This camp had one purpose: not labor, not punishment, but extermination. Trains packed with terrified families arrived daily. No food, no air. Over 100 people crammed in cars meant for 40. Many suffocated before the gates even opened. Guards screamed in German, Polish, Ukrainian. Mothers ripped from children. All told they were being disinfected. But the showers were gas chambers. Painted signs, fake clocks. It was a performance for the condemned. Men and women stripped naked. Women's hair shaved off to be turned into mattresses. Then came the tube, a corridor, barbed and silent, lined with pine branches, winding to the chambers. Gas was pumped in from a stolen Soviet tank engine. The screams echoed behind sealed doors. 20 minutes later, silence. In 14 months, between 700,000 and 900,000 people died here. Children, parents, grandparents, entire communities. Treblinka didn't just murder people, it erased them. Next came Sobibor, another Reinhard camp, engineered for death, optimized for deception. No prisoner numbers, no records. If you were brought to Sobibor, you were not meant to leave, except a few were spared. Not for mercy, but utility. Tailors, carpenters, cooks, kept alive just long enough to be useful. The rest, herded straight to the gas chambers. These weren't industrial complexes. They were crude death rooms, soaked in blood and urine from prior victims. Prisoners, many just teenage boys, cut hair from naked women, knowing they'd be dead minutes later. They couldn't speak, couldn't flinch. If they did, they were shot. The bodies were dragged out by other prisoners, gold teeth ripped out with pliers, hair collected like cargo. And yet, within the horror, small acts of defiance lived on. Prisoners whispered prayers, hid scraps of food, spit in Nazi soup, sang songs as they cleaned blood from floors. But the cost of defiance was death. A wrong glance, a dropped item, beatings, dog attacks, or worse. Despite everything, in 1943, the unthinkable happened. A revolt. Using stolen weapons, prisoners killed guards, set fires, and ran. Of 600, about 300 escaped the camp. Most were hunted down. Only 50 survived the war. But their rebellion proved one thing: even in death camps, resistance burned. And then there was Belzec. No screams echoed from here, because no one lived long enough to tell. 430,000 victims entered Belzec. Fewer than 10 survived. Unlike Sobibor or Treblinka, there were no barracks, no prisoner work crews, no internal life. Trains arrived, orders were given. Victims were told they'd be disinfected. Then they undressed, walked down a path lined with trees, and died. Diesel fumes pumped into gas chambers built for one thing: speed. So many were buried in mass graves that the ground shifted. Bodies swelled. The stench reached for miles. The Nazis ordered the graves reopened. Corpses were exhumed, piled on metal grates, and burned with gasoline. Smoke blackened the skies. Ash drifted like snow. Then the Nazis erased the camp itself, bulldozed it, planted trees, built a farmhouse, left a single guard with his family to make it look normal. As if 430,000 people had never been there. Chelmno. But before all of this, there was Chelmno, the first death camp, the prototype, and in some ways, the most terrifying. No fences, no barracks, just a manor house in a quiet Polish village. Here, death didn't come in buildings, it came on wheels. Victims were told to undress in a palace, then herded into trucks. Trucks that sealed from the inside and funneled carbon monoxide into the cabin. The engines ran, people screamed, clawed at walls, slipped in filth. Then silence. The trucks drove into the forest, opened their backs, dumped out corpses, drove back for more. Chelmno was rhythm, efficiency. It didn't look like a camp. It looked like a delivery service for death. Tens of thousands died here before Treblinka, before Belzec, before Sobibor. Chelmno was the experiment that proved genocide could be systematic. No records, no prayers, just smoke and silence. The Nazis didn't just try to murder a people, they tried to erase them. But silence does not mean forgotten. These camps, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec, Chelmno, may not be as well known as Auschwitz, but they must be remembered, not just for the horror they unleashed, but for the names they stole, the families, the laughter, the lives. You've heard their story. Now carry it forward, share it, speak it. Make sure they are never forgotten again. Like, subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover more truths history tried to bury.